Hello and welcome to Picture Yourself Communicating Better, Part 1, the Video Supplement. Yep, this is a video supplement to my Dental Lab Products magazine article published June 2011, starting on page 26. If you don't have that issue in front of you, you can always go to the Dental Lab Products website and download the PDF and follow along that way, or you can also just view along here now. Who am I? I'm Tom Zaleske. I'm the benchtop editor for Dental Lab Products magazine. I'm also an owner and technician, owning Matrix Dental Laboratory and Consulting, and I'm also a technical consultant for Keystone Industries. If you've ever called Keystone Industries for technical support or techniques on their products, you've probably talked to me. So with that being said, let's take a look at the topic of picturing yourself better through photography. And what I mean by that is that for years we've had to rely on verbal communication in order to explain deficiencies or needs in a case. I started taking benchtop photography of my work in order to track my own personal progress, oh gosh, back over 15 years ago, using single lens reflex 35mm cameras. Obviously, digital photography's come into its own over the years and has been a godsend because up until digital photography came along, I would have to go to Walgreens and I'd have to develop several rolls of film, and probably out of a roll of 24 I would have 3 pictures I actually liked. The benefits, of course, of digital photography is the on-the-fly editing and the fact that you don't have to keep anything you don't like, and you get the immediate picture that you can download and view on a computer screen. This little area here that you see is in my dental laboratory, and it's set up specifically for tracking and documentation. It's a small area, maybe less than 4 feet wide, and it has several elements that make it ideal for what I'm trying to do, which is track cases as they come in, when I see things that I need to illustrate to a doctor without having to figure out how I'm going to do it verbally or how I'm going to word it so that I don't cause some sort of miscommunication. And verbal communication is great, but visual communication is so much better. And you'll notice some of the elements that I have here. I have a video camera because I actually do some video documentation for doctors I'm working with. For functional aspects of cases. You'll notice I have a supply of battery chargers, always charging batteries because I hate to run out of juice while I'm shooting pictures. A monopod rather than a tripod or bipod because this gives me an off-the-counter way of mounting the camera and it being stable. And then 4 lights, 2 above and 2 below. And you'll notice I have a skeleton system here of copper tubing, which I suspend my lights from. Oh, and of course a background. So with all those elements in play, let's take a look, and I'll give you a place to go to take a better look at it, and that would be at Pics. Sharppics.com. Some of the things that you saw, which I didn't really get into detail about, is the photography bulbs, the portrait bulbs, or the still photography bulbs. These are photo floods, but they're now made out of fluorescent material rather than the halide or halogen bulbs of the past. Those bulbs, of course, got really hot and had a very short shelf life. These new fluorescent bulbs are very nicely color corrected. They throw out a very, very little minimum of heat, and they're easy on the pocketbook. Oh yeah, and the other thing is they have a lot of shelf life. I think they got like 20,000 hours, if I'm not mistaken, on that. So that's quite nice. Also, this monopod, a monopod of, like I said it earlier, it basically gives the camera stability so you don't get blurry pictures. But the nice thing about this particular monopod is it goes up and down, left and right, and all over the place, and it mounts right on your countertop, which is ideal for taking those benchtop photos. Also, a background. We've got to have a nice, wide, large background. This little kit here comes from Pics. It has black, silver, white. I prefer the black backgrounds, but the nice thing is that it sets up nicely in your photo area and gives you a great background on which to photograph on. Again, our lights, you'll notice, as you noticed before on the prior picture, I've eliminated the stands, and I have made myself a skeleton arrangement to suspend those lights and basically slide them back and forth up and down so that I can get the right amount of light intensity for the objects that I'm photographing. The cool thing about the digital documentation area is that once you set up the area, it's pretty much just a matter of taking the object that you want to photograph, placing it within the photographic area, and taking your pictures. 30 seconds to a minute and you're on to your next step. This is ideal for situations like impressions which you see that are deficient, or models you might receive that are broken, or any of those kind of things you want to illustrate right away. You can take the picture, and it's as easy as pulling the digital card out and putting it in your computer and sending it on as an email to your doctor to show him what you received or what you're questioning, and ask for his direction on how to proceed. The camera I use is a Olympus E300. By today's standards, it's probably underpowered a bit. 8 megapixels, not much when you're talking about 14 to 20 megapixels on some of those little point-and-shoot cameras. However, I don't find that this is kneecapping me at all as being able to take good photography. I've put on a 50 millimeter macro lens in order to get nice close-up photography, a 6-inch wide field, and I can close that field in as far back as I need to go in order to get pictures to illustrate what I'm actually looking for. One of the reasons I chose the Olympus camera over some of the others is because it has a feature where when you turn the camera on, it shakes the sensor, eliminating any kind of dust that might be on the sensor. And dust would show up as little black spots on all of your pictures in the same spot. Once you get a piece of dust on your sensor, you're cooked. But with that being said, probably one of the other reasons that I don't get any kind of dust on the sensors is because I do not take off and put back on different lenses, and the camera never leaves the monopod station in the tracking area. If you're going to have a tracking area like this, I would recommend that you totally dedicate a camera to it and don't move it around for those very reasons. So what are the things that come in? What are the benefits? You know, it's so hard to articulate a lot of times the benefits of things, or even to articulate the way you want to when you're writing an article. You're limited by the amount of words and the column space that you're provided. And you know, I don't feel like I was able maybe to articulate it distinctly enough. But the big one is it's confirmations. And this one here is a confirmation of tooth position. Once the case comes in and I go to mount the rim, the first thing I do is I mount it on a platform and I trace a line all the way around. And I take a picture of that. And what that picture does is that picture confirms that I mounted the case and I put a line, a baseline, and that when I set the teeth, I'm following what I was provided. And I know from all the years of experience in the dental laboratory, especially the removable lab, one of the contention issues, or one of the issues that always comes up, is you moved the teeth, you didn't use my rim, you didn't place them where they're supposed to be. Well, this here is a perfect way to illustrate that in fact they were. They were placed exactly on the rim, exactly the teeth were placed in the exact same position. This totally eliminates the laboratory, unless they want to, swallowing a reset fee when it comes back to you with instructions to reset. Personally, I've always been one to take the pictures and use them for their strength. And the strength of that is that if you're going to spend your time correcting things that weren't done at the beginning the right way, you're going to lose money, chase your tail, and lose your production. And this also helps to illustrate to the doctor that you're following certain protocols in your laboratory to establish a good baseline using the records that he's provided. And that's all it is. It's not about arguing. It's not about anything like that. It's about showing, hey, this is exactly where I placed the teeth because it was exactly how your rim was. And it's a good learning aid for the doctors, because once they understand that you're using the rim in this capacity, then all that other stuff kind of just dissolves. It just kind of goes away. Okay. Here's one. Just I wanted to show it as an example of how I track things when they come in after the fact. Now, this case came in. There was a frame try-in prior to me starting to set these teeth. And during that frame try-in, rather than adjust the opposition, this doctor chose to adjust the clasp, and he chose to adjust it in just the wrong place. Right at the turn, right where the most force is going to be. And I photo document this for a reason, and that reason, of course, is that if later on down the line this case has a breakage and it breaks there, I'm not going to have to shoulder the liability for that because I've documented it, and in all cases I've called or sent the pictures on to the doctor to illustrate what we're up against and what I see and what happened so that he understands that down the line there could be an issue. It's non-warranted. I cannot warranty this because it was nothing that I did that may at some point down the line cause failure. Again, I mean, these are the things that kill laboratories, because if you don't document this and it goes on and the case is fabricated and a year later it breaks, you're going to be held liable to repair it, and repair it probably at no cost. But with photo documentation, that disappears. It's a great way to track. I mean, you know, we're being asked to track we're being asked to track materials in our laboratory, so it only makes sense that we'd want to track the procedures, track what we're getting to work on, and track where deficiencies lie in the procedures. We're already tracking materials because we want to track materials that have problems and so forth, so why wouldn't this play well into that whole scenario? The fact of the matter is that it plays very well into that scenario. Anyways, non-warranted issues like deficient impressions. A quick phone call with a picture. Here's what I see. If you want me to proceed, I'll be happy to. Just to let you know, I cannot warranty fit. If we have to do a reline when the case is fabricated, I just want you to know that we could have stopped it right here and you opted to not for whatever reason, and just want to make that known. Again, this eliminates the laboratory shouldering something that was outside of their control. So remember, warranty, a usually written guarantee of integrity of your product and of the maker's responsibility for repair. Get that? Maker's responsibility for repair, replacement of defective parts. Well, this is a defective impression, folks. So if you're not communicating that and you don't have photographs, how are you going to at a later date do so? I use the photos to explain, make an idea, situation, or problem clear to someone by describing it in more detail and revealing relevant facts. And I just showed you previously relevant facts. Here's a relevant fact. A relevant fact is you do not take a pickup impression without custom trays. This was a stock tray, impression was poured, and when I was pulling it all away, here's what I saw. I saw the top of the impression coping bottomed onto the stock tray, and I just want you to know, doctor, I can't accept responsibility for any kind of malalignment of your attachments since you use these to transfer positions onto a master model. Just can't happen. Here it is. I want you to know now, just so you understand, someplace down the line, when the case is completed, you may opt to do a chair side, and that's all good, but I just want you to understand it had nothing to do with what I did in my laboratory and everything to do with what I received. You know, hey, I want to make it clear. The bite is off. Well, you know, the bite could be off all over the place. You know, is the bite here, there, I mean, here it is. It's very clear, crystal clear, that the bite is off. Do you want me to set the case? I will be happy to set the case. No, Tom, tell you what, why don't you just take out those registration pieces and put in the 6 teeth on the lower, and we'll do a try-in so at least I can save the appointment. Fine. It's very simple. If I was to take this without the picture, make the phone call, doctor, we have, it looks like we have a bad bite registration. Doctor says, well, you know, go ahead and set it anyways. And then you know the end result. This is all canted and tilted, and they get upset, and I don't blame them. They get upset because they look bad because the patient's staring at them from the chair, trying to figure out why the doctor's got perspiration rolling off the end of his nose for a very simple procedure, or at least one that he articulated as being a simple procedure, which would be taking the showing the new bite, and you can't show them the case because it's off. Again, the pictures are better than 1,000 words. Here's one. I was trying to explain the case was over-poured. It was a reline impression that was over-poured. Can you see this? I mean, I've showed this in clinics and lectures before, but this is the actual denture, and this was an over-pour of a reline impression. And you know, I called to say, you know, these are over-poured, and I'm going to have to charge you more than I ordinarily would for a reline, and then try to explain what I see. This picture, says it all right there. I mean, and you know what? This doctor and I have a great relationship, and he basically called me up later to tell me that he appreciated the fact that I'm tracking this stuff because it allows him to manage his practice better by having documentation of what's going out the door. And I thought that was really cool. It's a great way to work together. Rather than take it and turn it into some sort of a sour thing, we turned it into a very positive thing. He did. And that's the big point here, is do not attack these situations in personal fashion. It's matter of fact. It is what it is. It's documentation. You're just documenting, and you just want to make sure that what you're asked to do is going to work, and you want to be able to show why you don't feel it will. And that's all it is. It's not about you getting even, making a point, or anything like that. It really isn't. It's about making this as seamless as possible so that we can go right through the case without any kind of hang-ups. Here's just a way of tracking and documenting in-house. I just wanted to show we're setting up an attachment. I have a guy that I started working with, and he asked me, the guy being a laboratory, he was asking me, he had never really done these attachments, wanted to know how much room I needed. I actually sent him something to illustrate that, but for some reason he wanted to show me how far he was extending that ERA, which I really didn't like, but he felt that he had to because he had more limited space here. Nonetheless, it's a great way to track and document in-house between departments. Hey, you know, the guy over in your Crown and Bridge department's not real sure if this is a good design for this type of case, and the guy who's doing your removable has some ideas on how we can better it, what he's up against. It also helps the doctor see that we have some super eruption, I believe, I'm not sure, but we have this dip in the cusp. It doesn't follow the plane across. It's a good way to illustrate what we're up against so that the aesthetics don't look so horrible when the case comes in. There's no question because we have a photo to document it. You know, hey, we don't have a lot of room here. You know, how many times have we tried to tell somebody that? How many times have we heard that? Well, here's a great way to illustrate you have no room. That little measuring device is from APM Sterngold. It's a step gauge. These are in millimeters, and it automatically shows us that we have less than 3 millimeters between that frame's major connector, minor connector, and the opposing tooth, and how little tooth material we're actually going to have there. Again, are we opening up the bite, blah, blah, blah. This all sets up for dialogue. It all communicates exactly what not enough room looks like rather than trying to explain it. 3 millimeters in somebody's mind might seem like a foot, but if you can show them 3 millimeters in comparison to an open area, I think it just the point is much more succinct. Documentation, of course. You know, here was one. It came off the internet. It wasn't a case I was actually involved in, but there was a discussion on a forum about. The initial discussion was that I'm getting wear on my locators. And without that picture, there was a whole series of dialogue concerning design failure, design flaws, functional flaws, movement of partials, you know, it went on and on. Then somebody asked, do you have a picture? The picture was posted, and all of a sudden it became quite obvious to several people who had experience with screw-in locators on bars that there was a dissimilar metal situation, a galvanic situation going on because of all this pitting. It wasn't really wearing as much as it was pitting and being worn from the galvanic reaction. And so then there were recommendations to use different alloys, and they were able to zero in on the problem. But wear is one thing, but this isn't really wear. This was, by closer examination, this was some sort of a galvanic reaction. Again, 15 emails to try to get the point across, or 10 phone calls, one picture totally cements it. You know exactly what we're up against. You know, after we take all these pictures and we start finding that this is working out really well for us, we got to have a way to store all this stuff. It's got to be accessible. We got to have space, size. It's got to be non-volatile. You know, can't corrupt easy. You got to have it and keep it on file. My recommendation at the beginning was, when I first started, my options were to use discs. And I put almost all of my cases on CD-ROM discs and DVD discs until I started to realize that there really isn't a whole lot of shelf life for these types of things, and ended up getting some corrupted discs along the way, and decided that I got to steer clear. So I started downloading these the cases, and I took the already existing cases I had and I downloaded them to a hard drive. External hard drives, the internal ones first, and then I realized that that was going to be just too crazy, because I was going to have all this stuff on my internal drive in my computer, and then when my computer puked, I'd be done. So I switched over to external drives. I started using the Western Digital drives. They're up to 2 terabits now. This one here, I believe, is 500 gigabytes, and it's quite adequate. I also back up my drives as well, just because I'm so nervous about losing anything nowadays. You might have a question too. Well, how do I retrieve the files? You know, what about the accessibility, the retrievability of it? Well, you know, you can make it as difficult or you can make it as easy as you'd like. I prefer to just make a doctor folder and then put the photos in the doctor file without really labeling them, because every one of the photos has a timestamp, and as long as I know whereabouts the time when the case was fabricated, I can find the file relatively quick. You might want to tag a name onto the file, and I would take like Jones A, Jones B, Jones C, Jones D, and it doesn't have to be anything more than that. All you're doing is you've got Jones and you've got several files on Jones, so you can find the date, go to Jones, and then you can pull up what you need. This would be extremely useful for like when something comes in and you want to see if you're going to warranty a repair. I started using these now, which is even better. These are external drives, but now they're the size of a pack of cigarettes, and they have the same storage space as that big honker there has. So I've started putting them on these drives, and I got a couple of these little drives like parked in a drawer, and I download and back up on these just to keep them on hand, because I don't want to lose one thing. And these are much more stable. Keep them in a nice stable environment, wrap them in a little bit of foam, stick them away, and then when you need them, just pull them out, plug and play, and download your files onto that, and just keep yourself a couple of those little rascals laying around and backed up. The storage technology is just phenomenal, and I just can't say enough good things about it. It's great. Plug and play. I mean, it's just push it right into your USB port and you're rocking. You know, I also, when I started communicating to doctors, I was looking for a way other than emails to send pictures, because it takes forever to download pictures via email. And so I started looking for image sites, and I found Flickr to be one that worked extremely well for me. That's a Yahoo site. And you can literally just make folders and keep them private, and then you can just send those folders on to whoever it is that you're trying to communicate with. So if, like, just for instance, if I had this case here and I want to communicate to that doctor on that specific patient, I would just basically call up a window and put his email address in and give him private viewing privileges for that, and he can download those at any size he wants. He can view them right on his screen. He can do a lot of things with them. It's a nice place to store. It's easy. Whenever I was doing articles and so forth, I would put my images in a file, and that would allow the editors to grab those and use them the way they wanted. This now is actually starting to become kind of archaic, and I've moved on. And I've moved on now to Dropbox, which is cloud storage and communication. And this is really cool because literally what I'm doing is I'm putting a file on my hard drive, and I just take and drag files over to that file. So if I have pictures, say, on Walker, like I showed you earlier, I would just grab that folder and I would put it in Dr. So-and-so's file in Dropbox, which would just be a drag and drop. And as soon as I drag and drop it in, the first time I'll send an email to him which will say join Dropbox, and then once he's joined Dropbox, he'll be able to access that file. That file will show up on his side as a file on his hard drive, which he'll click on, and he can immediately look at those files. He can drop other files into it, and then it immediately sends an email back to me telling me that I have new files in my folder, and I never once have to go to anything like Flickr and do any kind of downloading because it's all drag and drop, and the cloud computing part of it takes care of downloading the pictures, images, or communication from one end of it to the other. It's extremely cool. I know it's maybe I'm not explaining it as succinctly as somebody in computer science, but if this was my laboratory and this was Dropbox, this would be their server and this would be my doctor on the other side. I literally can drag and drop a folder into my desktop. It goes here, it's stored, and it sends a copy of that to this person and puts that on their computer as well, and all they do is just click on it and it opens up via the server. Now he can download from there or anything, but the point is that it's extremely simple drag and drop. So look into Dropbox, and I think that Noah Levine has an article on cloud computing in the latest edition of Dental Lab Products as well. So to review, we have sharppics.com for your photo needs. Oh, I didn't mention it, but I used the Whipmix Ultimate Articulator, which was in the first couple of pictures, just to illustrate where I was illustrating where I have a platform and I've drawn the rim onto the platform and then transposed the tooth positions to that platform. The Stern Gold Step Gauge, which I used to illustrate the space parameters, that little gold gauge. I recommend those highly. Even if you're not taking pictures, it's a great way to figure out how much space you have. Flickr, which I mentioned for downloading your pictures and communicating. Dropbox, which is my cloud communication, cloud storage preference nowadays. And of course, I'm always recommending to read Dental Lab Products Report /lab, which is where you'll find the Dental Lab Products magazine and all of the not only benchtop editor articles, but all of the articles that have been published over the course of the last few years. And of course, always you have to check in and see Thais. She does a DPR Fridays, so a wonderful update on products and things that are going on in the industry. So hey, thanks for coming by. I appreciate your interest. Look for part 2, which will be coming up shortly, which will address the August, or I should say it's probably September, part 2, which will be talking about the techno-clinical communication using digital photography. So thanks again. Make sure again to view part 2, clinical communication, once it's posted. That shouldn't be but a few days. Thanks again, and hey, please join my subscription here on YouTube so that you can keep up with the latest videos, those that pertain to the articles I write, and also to the little independent ones that I do from time to time on techniques that people ask me questions about. All right, well listen, have a great day, and thanks for stopping by.